Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. Thank you all for tuning in. The early chatters are in. And it really does warm my heart that you guys are all here talking before the video starts. It's kind of a nice little like pre-meeting gathering. So it's good to see y'all. Everybody's here. Donald, Sweetleaf, Had Valmer. Please remember to like the video. If you all like the video right now, that would be great. Kuro Hikes. Hello from South Dakota. What are you doing in South Dakota, man? What's up in South Dakota? Natural Progressive. Hello. Osama, the early bear gets the honey. Indeed. Please like the video. Make sure you are still subscribed, please. Dana, hello. Exactly. Rich Diana says, Kevin, Raza is your warm-up comedian. Indeed. He's like the master of ceremonies. We'll appoint Raza the de facto, the MC of the show. TCR, what's up? All right, guys, good to see you. Well, let's get into some things. Just a few of the ones that I know of the weather events happening around the planet. So there's some drought happening in Eastern Europe. Poland and Czechoslovakia now is Czechs fear historic drought threatening harvest and water supplies. This is from yesterday, not today. The Czech Republic is facing the worst drought in its modern history. That's threatening to seriously damage harvest and limit the availability of drinking water, a cabinet minister said. The rain and snowfall has been declining in the past decade, so that would be a trend. While rising average temperature has led to periods of drought in the landlocked Central European country. This year, the combination of almost no snowfall and warm winter resulted in a catastrophic situation, according to Environment Minister Jiří Brabec. We are facing an unprecedented season of drought in terms of length as well as possible consequences. Brabec told a televised briefing, and it's April, when water levels in rivers should be at their highest and the soil should be soaked with water. So there you go, looking like possible impending harvest problems in Eastern Europe as they face a drought there. Moving on the flip side, we have flooding in Kenya. 116 Kenyans killed by floods over the last 2 weeks. Over 100,000 displaced. Over 100 Kenyans have been killed by floods in the last 2 weeks. The government has said. Speaking during a press briefing on Wednesday, April 29th, Devolution Cabinet Secretary. I don't know if this is a typo, but what is a devolution cabinet? They all sit around and listen to Devo? Are they involved in devolving their society? I don't understand what that means. Anyways, Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa said 116 people have lost their lives to ongoing floods caused by heavy rainfall in various parts of the country. Wamalwa noted that more than 100,000 other people in 29 countries have been displaced from their homes and are in need of help. He added the government has dispatched 40,000 bags of rice for distribution to the affected families in different countries. Not good. Dana, yes, I just read something about Fort McMurray yesterday. Uh, yeah, they're experiencing floods. There, the ice is melting, um, and the whole town is in big trouble. Um, moving on. So, dissatisfaction with the Joe Biden nomination, or Joe Biden being the last man standing, and the ongoing controversy around allegations around sexual impropriety are really upsetting people, and this is starting to gain so much traction that it's getting mainstream media coverage. Chris Hayes covered it and was targeted on Twitter with the hashtag, fire Chris Hayes, or, go away Chris Hayes, because how dare you bring up this stuff? How dare you bring up this stuff about a woman with an allegation of sexual impropriety against a man? How dare you believe this woman? Coming from the same crowd that was yelling "Believe women" when it was Brett Kavanaugh on the stand. Anyways, this seems to be heating up. And there's a lot, people are very, very angry around this. This is looking like 2016 all over again, but I don't know if it's worse or better or different, but it looks pretty similar to me. Tweet from Brianna Joy Gray. This was always why Biden wasn't electable. Even before Tara Reid, there were still the 7 other women, Ukraine, NAFTA, the Iraq War, etc. I believe we shouldn't have hit this. Believe we should have hit this harder. Again, a lot of people believe that Joe Biden should have been held to much more account. I believe we should have hit this harder. We tried on Heart the Burn, but it's also true that the media showed no interest. Right. So the media being the lapdog of the establishment, they do not want you, they want to ram Joe Biden down your throats, and they do not want any questioning of Joe Biden, especially from Bernie Sanders or anybody that supports Bernie Sanders. Because how dare you? Going on in the same tweet, they're talking about Trump's moves against Biden. That's Trump's perhaps only winning move to bring the playing field down to his level, to lower Biden's favorability rating, to make him seem less admirable, less likable, less morally upstanding, less superior than Trump. I think this is obviously written from a Democratic leaning entity. He did the same thing against Hillary Clinton in 2016, using the FBI investigation of her email practices while Secretary of State as a cudgel. Or maybe just pointing out that she was under FBI investigation. Last summer, the strategy was to impugn Biden's son, making them both look like corrupt wheeler dealers in Ukraine, which they are corrupt wheeler dealers. So they're trying to make it seem like Trump is creating this story that's trying to bring Biden down, and we don't think, we'll see if it works. The thing is that the story is completely true. Biden, there is a videotape of Biden admitting, bragging about quid pro quo. And, people just don't buy it, except for, of course, the people that believe the media. Remember the graph that I showed you, Democrats, have a lot of faith in the media. So those people are easy to manufacture consent with, right? Democrats totally, eat up whatever it is the media, puts in their face, and they're like, oh yeah, because I trust the media. So they're easy to manipulate. Democrats are easier to manipulate than Republicans because Republicans trust the media much less than Democrats. And I'm sorry, it's just a really sad fact, but it's true. I wish it weren't so. That didn't work out, but now Reid's allegations have made it possible for Trump and his party to do what they love most of all, which is to accuse Democrats and the media of smarmy double standards instead. Well, which they're guilty of smarmy double standards. Whether you support Trump or not, I do not support Trump, but it's not hard to go, sounds kind of hypocritical, guys. Of course, this won't work with Democratic voters. It won't work. Well, not the Democratic voters that believe the media, because trust media. But that won't be its aim. The aim will be to ensure maximal turnout and Trump loyalty among Republicans. Because, there's nothing more evil than Republicans turning out for their candidate. And the destruction of Biden's reputation among independents. Oh, there you go. In crucial swing states. The real evil plan is destroying his reputation with independents. The swing voters that are supposed to support Biden because he has such crossover appeal, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, moving on. More bad news for Biden. 19-point enthusiasm gap. Trump supporters jazzed to vote. Biden's meh. They're not very excited about Biden. Nobody's excited about Biden. And lastly, this question has to be asked of Bernie Sanders, and I think this is rightly put. I'm going to ask since no one else will. Bernie Sanders, we all put our support and hard work behind you. As a woman and survivor of sexual assault, I'd like to know why you haven't demanded an investigation on the allegations of rape against Joe Biden by Tara Reid. Allowing women to tell their stories isn't enough. Listening to women isn't enough. A thorough investigation is the only way we can get survivors justice. Joe Biden has a long history of sexual misconduct, and I'm truly disappointed in your endorsement of that predator. Unendorse. And there you go. Bernie Sanders has put himself in a corner, where he has to toe the establishment line, and therefore giving up all of his, moral codes, right? All his moral standing, all his, preaching that we need to do better, or that we need to expect better from politicians, or that we need to expect better from our government, and we need to expect better from our leaders. And yet he's endorsing this person and not even bringing up this issue, which he should bring up. It makes Bernie Sanders, not necessarily look corrupt, but he's placating a corrupt entity. He's supporting a corrupt entity. He's endorsing a corrupt entity. And how can you do that and maintain some kind of moral standing? I don't know. Anthony Davis says, I am voting Biden because I do not want another 4 years of Trump. And for that matter, Trump is no saint with women compared to Trump. Biden is a saint. Okay. Well, that's fine. If that's your prerogative. If that's how you feel, that's the way to go. Go with your feelings or do what you think is the right thing to do. So yeah, although, what I'm seeing is a lot of people are not going to support Biden. I'm seeing that a lot of people, that the worse this gets, the more that comes out. I mean, it's, the silly part of it is like, well, there was already some very, very heinous, things in Biden's past as far as things that he supported, or things that he was against, as in busing, or integration, or, et cetera. Things that he was for, the crime bill, locking record numbers of black and brown people up in prison. I mean, that's, Joe Biden's legacy. So there's really horrible things in his legacy, horrible, like really ridiculous things he said during debates, on national television, and nobody, all of that was something that you could overlook. And now all of this stuff is coming out, and it's getting very impossible for people to overlook. Jennifer Elizabeth says not supporting Biden. There you go. The thing is that I don't, I see more and more people every single day, and I see a lot of people, Proudhon super predators indeed. I see a lot of people that are not going to support Biden. They're not going down that road again. They're not going to support the DNC. They, feel like they've been cheated once again, or at least given no option but to vote for somebody who is incredibly despicable, who is preening as the moral superior to Trump, right? And Hillary Clinton did this as well, right? I'm morally superior to Trump. I'm a better person. This is a better party. And there wasn't much of a case to be made. Just saying those words doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. So, what do? We have no leverage right now. We meaning the left, or we meaning common people, or we meaning people who are concerned about climate change, or we meaning people who want Medicare for all, or we meaning, we want, we need actually immediate help in the face of COVID. We have no leverage right now. Even before COVID, we had no leverage. There's no way to influence the machine unless you have a machine big enough to influence the machine. I think that's why so many people put their trust and hope in Bernie Sanders, because, he had big enough name recognition, big enough popularity, and he had a machine behind him that was, many people hoped or thought could possibly challenge the corrupt machine. What we need right now is an anti-machine machine. COVID shows the way that a combined sit out or sit down or stay at home can really influence the economy, the environment, the country. So many people I know are not voting for Joe Biden. If Joe Biden wins, it will be because the election will have the lowest voter turnout ever in history. And I actually think that's going to go against Joe Biden anyways. Or Donald Trump self-immolates, which is a possibility as well. Due to the virus and likely shenanigans surrounding vote by mail and or outright voter suppression, this could be the case. I don't see Biden winning at all on any level. There is no chance. Gene, I'm going to get there. There is no chance. The way that the left and those concerned about climate change can turn this to their favor is to state out loud, I am not voting for Joe Biden, and this is why. This is the reason. This has to be organized. We can't just let Joe Biden lose in resounding fashion without shouting out, we are done with neoliberalism. We are done having no party representation. And most importantly, we are not interested in anybody who isn't putting action on climate change front and center. And again, we're not going to let Joe Biden lose and have the entire media apparatus tell us it was because it was Russians. And I'm going to get into the Russian thing. I don't know if I'll get into it today, but there's more evidence coming out around Russiagate that is going to pretty much destroy the whole narrative around Russiagate. So anyways, yeah, right? So Hillary Clinton lost and it was everybody's fault. It was, Russia's fault. It was Bernie's fault. It was, Jill Stein's fault. We cannot let Joe Biden lose and then have the media blame, other people other than the Democratic Party and Joe Biden for their loss. We have to organize in our dissension. There are other political parties. There most likely will be more created this year, but one way we can flex our collective non-vote muscle is saying that wherever our votes are going, they're specifically not going to Biden and the corrupt DNC. We need an anti-party party, and that is already in the works all over social media, right? So it's fairly easy to organize that, at least to know, like, this is not happening. We are bailing out, but we need to be very, very clear in why we're bailing out. We need to be very clear. You are the problem. The DNC, the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, this apparatus is the problem. And this, we're striking against this problem. It just needs to be focused, concentrated, organized as a block of people who are going to wield power over this election. So here's the deal. You wanted to beat Trump so bad that you were willing to accept the DNC pushing another flawed and surely doomed candidate on us. Well, too bad. We will make sure you lose. Call us selfish children if you wish. Call us all the names in the book. You can't win without us, and we will make sure that your candidate loses until you, A, endorse someone who reflects our wishes and addresses the criticality of the issues we are concerned about, and B, accept the dismantling of the machine that keeps your corporate cardboard cutouts in power. See it as a boycott or a general strike if you wish. You might call teachers or auto workers selfish toddlers when they go out on strike. But would you? You would not. You recognize the validity of their complaints and the need for worker solidarity. Well, the media and the duopoly has done a good job shaming you for withholding your vote. It's time to take back power, and you can take it back right now by taking back your vote. We just need to let people know this is why this is happening. Because if you don't do that, then they're not going to understand. You cannot, we're not going to let this happen. Oh, it's just not happening. Sorry. And it's not happening until you acquiesce to our wishes, until you address our concerns. These issues are serious and need immediate attention. The climate crisis is serious and needs immediate attention. Vote strike, Dem boycott, anti-machine, whatever you want to call it. It's time to amass the power that may not keep Trump out of office in the short term, but may change the face of politics sooner than later. So, yes, so maybe Trump wins, maybe Trump gets in office, but if you create a solidarity around the left, if you create the idea in people's minds like, oh, maybe we should take this seriously instead of shaming people or putting them down or calling them selfish, or calling them crybabies for not wanting to go down the incremental road, then you have amassed the power, right? Trump might win, but you have so much power that you're like, well, guess what? In the midterms, we're going to wield this power. In the next election, we're going to wield this power. And if you don't, take it seriously, well, then you're just going to lose again. You're going to keep on losing. This is what's happening all over the country because, we live in one of the only countries in the world that doesn't have socialized medicine. Other countries are giving their citizens, Canada is giving their citizens, $2,000 a month. Spain is giving their citizens UBI until this COVID thing is over. I mean, people are getting help from various countries. But in the U.S., with the worst coronavirus outbreak of any country on the planet, we are getting almost nothing. We're getting a lot of nice promises, a lot of words, a lot of we should, even from our leaders. I think that we can even use this solidarity against or to prod even our progressive leaders to actually do something instead of just talk about it, right? You have these progressive leaders, AOC, Ilhan Omar, whoever, coming out and saying like, we demand, we need, these things for the people, but then they go in and vote, for these stimulus bills anyways. So, why not pressure them? Why not do the thing that Bernie Sanders was threatening to do to other lawmakers, right? Like he was saying, well, if I get into office, I'm going to pressure these other lawmakers to vote for the things that I want. Well, why don't we pressure those lawmakers right now? Look, if you don't vote for our interests, if you don't vote against these giveaways, if you don't vote, for a straight benefit bill for the people, right, and leave the corporations out of it, we're going to withhold our votes. We're going to vote you out in the next election is coming up. You're done. You're gone. We can do that. We can do that as a bloc. We can do that as an organized left, a left that is starting to organize and starting to understand that it's powerful, but hasn't really flexed that muscle yet. Caleb Rochester says they don't care if they lose. Right. I know that they don't care right now. But it's the reason why AOC is starting to capitulate to the Democratic power base is because she wants to stay in office. And it's really hard for her to stay in office if she's going against the Democratic power base. Well, if the voters say, guess what, you're not going to stay in office unless you stand for the things that we thought you stood for, she's gonna be out of office anyways. There's going to have to be some kind of pressure. Kiro Hikes, they literally do not care. Yeah, I know they do not care. But they do respond to pressure, though. They do respond to pressure. The only solution is revolution, possibly. I'm not counting that out, and I don't, I actually personally am in favor of dismantling the entire structure that is the current United States of America. I'm not talking about I want people to be hurt. This is for the people, the entire structure of the military industrial complex, the intelligence agencies, all of that, the entire structure needs to be completely dismantled and rebuilt. But until that happens, we're going to have to do our best. Anthony Davis says, I think it is a bit too soon for our left to go full speed until after 2024. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. Look, Biden is not going to win. I'm sorry. And it doesn't matter. I know you're going to vote for Biden. That's fine. Vote your conscience. Biden will not win. Trump is already a shoo-in unless he shoots himself in the face. He could do that. But it's probably not going to happen. So, look, if Trump's going to win already, if they've chosen, brain dead Biden to be the guy, and it's a done deal, Trump is in, let's go left. It's time to go left. Now is the time. Gene, they are scared of us if we realize and hold our true power. Yes. Yes, indeed. So there are ways in which people can organize around what's going on now. There are people out there doing it right now. Gene asked Kuro, define revolution because it could be done with massive strikes. I mean, look, strikes have shown to be quite effective, in getting governments to move. We did have massive strikes before, in the 30s, during the last depression, And the thing that prompted FDR to put so many, socialist programs in place that was done after massive strikes happened. Very bloody strikes happened. And then you have all the strikes and all the resistance around the civil rights movement, which was actually effective. Did it go far enough? Sure, it did not. But I mean, it went pretty damn far. Rich Diana asks, Kevin, did you know Trump was going to win last time? I didn't know, but I've pretty much thought that Democrats and I thought people on the left were delusional to think that Trump couldn't win. And they all thought, that's the thing. Again, the manufacturing of consent around the last election was insane. They were trying to megaphone this idea that Hillary was going to be it, right? And they were just trying to they had everybody convinced that Trump could never win, that Hillary was ahead by 10 points. Whether all of that was contrived or not, whether that was all, manufactured, Hillary being ahead and Trump being behind. I knew the whole time that Trump was actually in a much stronger position. And a lot of people thought Trump was going to win or thought he was stronger than they admitted he was. And that's why people were so like, oh my God, when Trump won, that's why people were so just mind blown. It wasn't just because they didn't like Trump. It was because they were told over and over and over again that Trump would never win, that Hillary's got this in the bag. And, they were just so convinced, like, this is it. This is what it's going to be. And, so of course they were like disbelieving and how could this possibly happen? When the entire time the media was basically lying to the American public. They were trying to ram Hillary down everybody's throats by making it look like she was inevitable. And that proved to be bad. And now they're trying to do it with Biden again, but it's, the veneer is gone from that whole playbook. The mask is off. Rich Diana, actually, you know what? I actually knew Trump was going to win, and this is why I knew Trump was going to win. And I told this story before, but they haven't done any flash polls, like internet polls, from CNN or any of the big companies. They haven't done any of those in this election cycle because they know those polls kind of tell the truth, right? So in the primary, when Bernie was against Hillary, CNN did like a flash poll, and it was like Bernie Sanders 82 and Hillary like 12. It was ridiculous. Like, she was just blown the fuck out of the water. And I was like, that's how people actually really think. And they took that poll down. It didn't even last 24 hours. It was down within like 6 hours. They did that again with Hillary and Trump. I don't know why they did it again. And it was the same thing. It was like Trump 80% and Hillary like 16. And I was like, that's the actual numbers. They took that shit down again. Didn't even last 24 hours. And I was like, that's how people actually feel. That's how anti-establishment the sentiment is. And they were, the entire time, the mainstream media was trying to tell you it was all, normal or regular. And, and if you didn't like Hillary, you must be, some kind of crazed Bernie supporter or crazed secret Trump supporter or whatever. So you're not going to see any of those flash polls, but I mean, they're doing plenty of polls between Biden and Trump. And again, they're doing this thing where it's like, well, Biden's ahead by 10 points, but nobody really cares about voting for him. Like, they have little to zero enthusiasm. So I'm like, so how is he ahead by 10 points if nobody cares about voting for him? Okay, who constructed this fake poll or these fake results? Anthony Gelbert, Biden is a fall guy for oligarchy, period. Yes, indeed. Kuro, I agree with you. Put the fear of no God in our masters, indeed. So yeah, I mean, there's, May 1st is tomorrow. May 1st, May being historically important month for solidarity, worker solidarity, and strikes. And there's some major strikes happening tomorrow. I'm just gonna cover a couple of things. This is a good video on Twitter about the situation.
Mortgage has become the greatest financial obstacle for people around America right now. The decision that people are having to make to keep a roof over their head or feed themselves or feed their children because they're now unemployed, furloughed, so on and so forth. While we're all home, we need to be demanding that every single elected official pushes for a cancellation, suspension of rent, mortgage, or at least aligns with other elected officials who are proposing policies to do such things. That's where everyone should be focusing on right now. Otherwise, America's going to collapse, frankly. Rent.
This is we don't need to listen to this again. So this is Frederick from Frederick Joseph, who works with rent relief. So yeah, people are calling on officials to give us some help. I don't know, I don't know what kind of success they're going to have by just asking. I think we are beyond the point of just asking, because I think that it's shown that asking or demanding or imploring is not having any effect. We got to move beyond just asking, and there's got to be more pressure. There's got to be demands in the way of strikes. So this is happening tomorrow. Workers gear up for major May Day strike and push back against unsafe conditions amid pandemic. So all kinds of companies are going on strike tomorrow. One organizer explained that the goal is to push back with large numbers against the right-wing groups that want to risk our lives by reopening the economy. Okay, but it's not just about that, okay? It's not just about the right-wing groups. Yes, they want to reopen the economy, and that's ridiculous. But it's about the corporations that are treating these workers so badly. That's what it's about. It's not about the right-wing groups. It's about these fucking corporations, okay? That are not giving their workers protections. They're not paying their workers enough money. They're treating them just as badly as they always have been, even though they're still forced to go out and work and be essential workers, to keep the economy going and to keep people fed and to keep people healthy. So that's what we need to be talking about, right? So I don't know what this little byline was or whatever, but workers at some of the nation's biggest companies, including Amazon and Target, are preparing to symbolically lock arms Friday for a May 1 strike and demand better protections on the front lines of the coronavirus pandemic. Whole Foods, Amazon, Target, and Instacart workers are striking on May 1st. So there you go. Don't cross the picket line. If you can, do not do any business with these companies, okay? Stay out of Whole Foods, Amazon, and Target. Do not use Instacart. Among the lead organizers of the action, Motherboard reported Wednesday, is Chris Smalls, who is the Amazon worker who was fired last month from his job at a fulfillment center in Staten Island after organizing a protest. We formed an alliance between a bunch of different companies because we all have one common goal, which is to save the lives of workers and communities, Smalls told Motherboard. Right now isn't the time to open up the economy, Smalls added. Amazon is a breeding ground for this virus, which is spreading right now through multiple facilities. Adam Ryan, who works at a Target store in Virginia, is another lead organizer of the May Day action. He explained to Motherboard that the goal of the strike is to shut down industry across the board and to push back with large numbers against the right-wing groups that want to risk our lives by reopening the economy. As Motherboard reported, while the mass strike action might not be enough to shut down society, the collective action certainly echoes the calls for a general strike, which hasn't happened yet, a coordinated work stoppage across businesses and industries in pursuit of a common goal, the likes of which have not been seen in the United States since World War II. The workers are demanding their profitable employers provide increased pay and paid leave, health insurance for all workers, and for COVID-19 affected stores to be shut. The workers are also calling on customers to show solidarity by not shopping at the stores on May 1st, according to a flyer shared on social media. The Intercept also reported on the upcoming strike, with Daniel Medina writing Tuesday. The May 1 strike is the latest in a wave of actions led by union and non-union frontline workers. Last month, Amazon workers in New York City and more than 10,000 Instacart workers across the country staged a walkout. Whole Foods employees led a national sick-out on March 31st, while upwards of 800 workers skipped their shifts at a Colorado meatpacking plant as coronavirus cases were confirmed among employees. Sanitation workers in Pittsburgh and bus drivers in Detroit both staged wildcat strikes. These workers have been exploited so shamelessly for so long by these companies while performing incredibly important but largely invisible labor, said Stephen Breer, a labor historian and professor at the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies. All of a sudden, they're deemed essential workers in a pandemic, giving them tremendous leverage and power if they organize collectively. May 1 is a celebration of working people around the world. Margaret Kimberly wrote Wednesday at Black Agenda Report, "It is the perfect moment to begin to fight for economic justice, which has accelerated due to the COVID-19 pandemic." I'm also interested in trying to figure out a way to organize people around sitting out reopening the country, right? Like, so we're already self-quarantined. We're already staying at home. You know, we've already taken ourselves out of the economy, taken our labor out of the economy. What if there's a way to organize people around just continuing to stay at home or continuing to just not take part in the economy to put some kind of pressure on the system, on the government, on our leaders? Jay Thadcast replying to Proudhon, the McPherson paradox turns out to be unsubstantiated so far. Bumper crops globally this year. Maybe. I think we still have a little bit of time. Proudhon science papers warned that 35% decrease in industrial activity would result in a 1°C rise in global average temperature in 5 days to 6 weeks. Let me see if there's another. No effect on global average temperature. Arctic temp rises are way ahead of the rest of the world. I mean, I think what we're seeing so far is, you know, the typical rise in, the rise in temperature along the trend line as it has been progressing. But have we seen a spike in temperatures? Not yet, but will we see a spike in temperatures? I think there's still time for us. Say what, Anthony Davis? What are you looking for? Last Monkey, reopening is bad, okay? Donald McCarthy says, my lifetime of frugality was buried in an orgy of other people's consumption. Ouch. Indeed. Right, but if you get enough people who are on the frugal wave, maybe the frugal wave can undermine the consumptive people. Basil Peterson says Siberia is on fire just because it is not here. It is happening. And that's true too. I agree with you. I mean, we just don't know. I think it's just too early to tell yet. Have we seen an immediate spike? No, we haven't. But will we see an overall spike? I think it's still possible. Bold rope lamppost, compassionate degrowth, indeed. A wave at an orgy is so lame, don't you think? Yes. I think it's kind of fun. What do you think? Wave it all. Wave everything. Anyways, let's... Was that all I had to cover today? I think it was. So guys, remember, so tomorrow, I should have said this at the top of the show. Tomorrow, I will be on Rockfin doing a live stream at this time tomorrow, and it's going to be called Friday Gas Strike. So every Friday, we're going to do Friday Gas Strike at Rockfin. All right, or at least we're going to try. We're going to see how it goes for a couple weeks. So please come over to Rockfin tomorrow at 11 a.m. for Friday Gas Strike. And we will have the show over there. There's a link for Rockfin in the description box below. Okay. So go over there, just download the app or sign up or whatever you have to do, and we'll try and do it again. I think that was... Oh, here's some more rent strikes going on, or more actions going on around LA. Today in LA, 10 to 12, well, that's already passed, surround City Hall with the LA Tenants Union is surrounding City Hall. Tonight, between 6 and 9, at Figueroa and 26, outreach party and sunset cruise with LA Tenants Union's Northeast Local. And tomorrow, if you're in LA, at 3:30, car caravan around Gil Garcetti's house with People's City Council, Food Not Rent. That is going on tomorrow. Oh, so before we leave, I want to say there's more and more backlash against Michael Moore. Of course, the people who are really invested in green energy or invested in telling you that we have a future, if we do certain things, they're really angry about this movie. I'm kind of half doomer, half optimist, but I'm 100% realist. So, I try to remain realistic. This person wrote, some kind of op-ed around Planet of the Humans, very angry, but they work for a site called Below 2C. So he's really invested in staying below 2C, which doesn't look like it's going to, that mark is not going to last for very long. I was excited to hear Michael Moore announce that he was releasing a new film, Planet of the Humans. On Earth Day, I found a number of his films, in particular Bowling for Columbine and Sicko, thoughtful and funny and on the money. Unfortunately, Planet of the Humans fails on all three counts, and more unfortunately, the film has already been viewed more than 1 million times in the first 24 hours. The film is actually written, produced, and directed by Jeff Gibbs. Much of the assessment of renewable energy, wind, solar, electric cars, the grid is simply cringeworthy. More on this later. It's as if the filmmaker hadn't read anything on renewables in at least a decade. In this film, anyone who has an opinion and some tangential connection to the industry can be a trusted expert if they have offered a soundbite in front of Gibbs' camera. Take, for example, the salesman in the film who suggests confidently that solar panels only last 10 years. It's clear that fact-checking wasn't going to interfere with the polemic. Yeah, this seems to be one of the main arguments against the film is that in the last 10 years that, photovoltaics and renewable energy technology has advanced and that, they're much more cost effective and whatever. I'd say by some that still doesn't take out the fact that you need fossil fuels to make those things. Or that you need fossil fuels to back those things up when they don't work. I'm sure that the technology is much better than it was 10 years ago. I'm positive. It still doesn't take out the fact that it takes, a lot of carbon energy to create a windmill and to erect a windmill. And it doesn't destroy the fact that windmills and windmill farms, are environmentally destructive. Excuse me. Yes, and solar energy has a shelf life, whether it's 10 years or 20 years, I don't know. The film does have some redeeming features. Talk about biofuels, etc. Yeah, there's more, something else in The Guardian calls for dangerous Michael Moore film to be taken down. Et cetera, et cetera. Climate activists, they're very mad about this film because how dare you tell us that the answers we're trying to push on people are not the right answers. Lots of people are very invested in the green revolution, in the green energy revolution. And if you tell people wholesale that this is, possibly not the way to go, then there's going to be a lot of people upset. But here's something I wanted to read that I thought was relevant. Planet of the Humans has shown that was shown at Moore's Traverse City Film Festival, where the producer said it was perhaps the most urgent film we've shown in the 15-year history of our film festival. So their problem that the film suggested that unrestrained economy and population growth should be a target of environmentalist efforts rather than technological fixers. I don't see a problem with that on any level, but there's people that really have, again, are invested, have an interest in unrestrained economic growth and or population growth. You need both of those things to keep your growth paradigm going. So the growth paradigm, they want to keep the growth paradigm going. And they're also missing the point in the film at the very end where he said, where they're saying it's not about the molecules in the air. It's not about the climate, CO2 is causing the earth to warm. It's not about that effect. It's about the fact that so many humans on the planet are polluting and destroying the planet in so many ways. So they're missing the whole point that the green energy, getting our standard of living, having all the humans in the world reach our standard of living and live the way we live, and having it all powered by green technology just allows humans to continue to pollute and destroy the planet. They're missing that whole point, but of course they are. I'll go into this. I'll do that tomorrow. I think I'm nearing the end of my time. Windmills kill birds. Also, the other thing, when they were talking about the Ivanpah, the solar generating station, right? The one that's in the desert out by Las Vegas. I've driven by it many, many times. It's pretty like amazing to see. Every time I drive by it, I'm like, Jesus, it's a technological wonder. But they showed, that thing has been built, that was pretty recent. That part of the film where they covered the Ivanpah generating station was pretty recent because that thing has been there for maybe 10 years, maybe less than 10 years. So they've, said, look, this thing has been online for a while. Look at the mirrors are falling apart. They're getting broken. That it requires natural gas to start that thing up every morning, right? They're just whatever. Anthony Gelbert, Kevin, I wish you would talk more about the fact that 10% of humanity pollutes far more than the other 90%. Well, I agree with you, Anthony. I did talk about that yesterday, actually. Was it yesterday? I just talked about that. Not yesterday, but the day before. But yeah, you're right. You're right. 10% of humanity pollutes far more than the other 90%. And we need to start there. But again, it's about consumption. And consumption only happens when you have an energy system and an economic system that promotes that consumption, that supports that consumption. Botwinka, the only scientist the Guardian article mentions was McKibben. Yeah. But you're right, Anthony Gelbert. I totally agree with you. I think overpopulation is a problem, but I think that probably the first focus by environmentalists should be on how much the rich, the affluent are consuming, and how much first world nations are consuming. But that actually has to do with the economic growth paradigm, right? You have to stab the economic growth paradigm in the eye, the cyclops that it is. Plow. The economic growth paradigm is a false paradigm. It's a false message, and that gets into standards of living and consumption and who gets what. 10% ain't doing that because they are overpopulating. Last Monkey said, bet you in 10 years, Kevin, you will say, damn, before I became a realist, I was a real realist. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure. I don't know where, in 10 years, if I'm still going to be doing this channel, who knows? Who knows what I'm going to be doing in 10 years? You're right. So Gene, and this is something that I think is a very important point before I go. The first world is destroying everything, right? And what are we doing? What are we doing all the time is exporting our standard of living, our way of life to the rest of the planet. We're exporting. Everybody's supposed to live like we live. Everybody's supposed to buy everything like we buy everything and have everything that we have. That actually is the crux of the problem. And what we should be doing is importing other people's way of life into our society, as in living with less, living off the land, living like the indigenous do, living, extremely locally, living with very little. We should import that lifestyle into our society rather than export our lifestyle. But that means we would actually have to destroy a lot of the programming that we have around what it is that we should have. Anthony Gelbert says the military-industrial complex has very few humans, yet enriches that 10%. All of that has nothing to do with population excess. Yeah, no, I'll grant you that. That's a good point. That is a good point. But I think that, you still have to have, if you have 8 billion people consuming and using a certain amount of resources all over the world, I think that leads to like an overall environmental destruction paradigm. But that's not to say that I don't think that population shouldn't be a subject of discussion. I just, it's not the point for me. It's, it is a point. It's a big point. It's not the main point. I actually am more concerned around like degrowth and humans figuring out how to live with much less. You know what? I'm totally with you, Anthony. I totally agree with you. Larry Taylor says 10 years. I don't give us 5 years. No way. This year isn't even halfway over. Shit's never looked so grim. Forced Dweller asks a really good question. So who does not have population excess? The example is there already. Kuro Hikes, that means taking power away from the powerful. It's hard to force people to do shit when they have nothing. Right? You're right. We are all terrified of losing what we have, and that is why we continue to follow orders. Right? Exactly. And it's the people that have very little who are just barely hanging on. You're telling those people to give up what little tiny scraps they have of comfort or humanity in order to. It's difficult for sure. All right, guys, I have run out of time. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Please go to Rockfin tomorrow, and we will do a live stream there. Hoping you all can show up there. Tomorrow is Friday gas strike at Rockfin. So find the link, follow me there. I'll see you there tomorrow. Peace.